Hey everybody, Aaron Cowan with Sage Dynamics, and this is the Deadair Sierra 5 556/223 suppressor. I have been waiting for a 223/556 suppressor from Deadair for, I feel like, ever, but like a decade at least, or close to it if not. Deadair is known for hard use, low pressure and high pressure suppressors that can handle the rigors and abuse of, well, people like me. But they never made one that was specific for 5.56.223 because, well, there was just kind of a philosophy they didn't need to. Because you can use 30 caliber cans on 5.56, and don't get me wrong, the Sandman S is an excellent suppressor, which I've used almost all 5.56.223. But it's nice to have a caliber specific because that can provide certain advantages that you're not necessarily going to get from a 30 cal can. That's arguable depending on the gun, depending on the platform, depending on the operating system. But I wanted the option. I found out about this suppressor probably about 3 years ago. I got to see a prototype at SHOT Show, and then I had to, I was thinking it was going to be right out, and it wasn't. It took another couple of years for it to finally make it to market. Now, of course, for full disclosure, Deadair did send me the suppressor for the review purpose. So I didn't buy it, although had they not sent me one, I was definitely going to buy one anyway, and I probably will buy another one, but we'll get to that. 2,000 round review process about the suppressor. Now, throughout the review, I used the suppressor on a number of different guns, both DI and piston. I used it on like my Sage 12.5. In fact, two Sage 12.5s are in the video. I also used it on 13.7 and an 18-inch DMR 3 from FN. Also some other guns. You'll see them pop up in the video. It is their traditional hub system, I guess that's what they call it, in the fact that I can change it out from Chemo to Xeno, or I can use a direct thread adapter if I wanted to do direct thread. So those are options that I have in mounting the suppressor, which I think versatility is an excellent thing. A lot of my guns kind of default to their Chemo or key mount system. Just kind of twist it on, twist it off, really easy. The suppressor body itself has great knurling, kind of old school knurling on it, but it just makes it super easy to throw the suppressor on there. And their QD system is one of my favorites. I really like their QD system and the fact that it's rigid, it's very robust, it doesn't come loose. I don't think in all the years I've been using Deadair products, I've ever had this thing come loose when it was properly mounted down, so baffle strikes and concerns as the gun gets hot, things start to loosen up. Not really an issue I've ever had with a Deadair product as far as the mounting system goes. I definitely appreciate that. But I do like the Xeno system as well because it's almost like a direct thread. In fact, it pretty much is a direct thread because it literally threads onto the gun. So your I guess less hard use would be kind of a goal for that system. So it might be something I'd put on a precision gun versus like my Sage 12.5s. These get run pretty hard compared to like a DMR type platform on precision shooting for 5.56.223. The suppressor was surprisingly short, and that's something I noticed when they first showed me the prototype and then when the final product, when the Sierra 5 came out. I was expecting more of a Sandman S length, so I was a little bit concerned because it's not much longer than the Sandman K. I was a little concerned with, okay, is this going to provide, what's it going to sound like? And that's what everybody's concern with suppressors is. People talk about sound, and they'll even get into the weeds of, well, this suppressor, has 3 decibels more or 3 decibels less than that one. And I'm like, well, the human ear usually only notices gross changes in decibel level, either plus or minus 5. So 3 isn't really that big of a deal. And a suppressor's intent, to me, is more of bringing the sound level down to a below pain threshold at the ear. If you're going to be shooting a schedule of fire, you're going to shoot 100 rounds in a range trip, you probably should be wearing ear pro anyway, and I'm talking to you from experience. If you're going to be shooting indoors, you should definitely be wearing ear pro if you can help it. Emergency situations, home defense type situations, defensive shooting situations, you probably don't have time to put on ear pro. That's what the suppressor is for. If you want to do a signature reduction, that's what the suppressor is for. If you just want a more pleasant shooting experience where you don't anger those around you, that's what the suppressor is for. But it's not something you can just forego or should forego ear pro, especially if you're going to have long-term exposure or a high rate of fire. That being said, I still want the suppressor to provide a pleasant tone and a reduction in spicy pressure to my ears. So I was a little worried with the overall shortness of this suppressor. Was I going to get that, or was it going to perform, not a comparison, but I feel like it's worth mentioning, was it going to perform similar to the Sandman K? Worth talking about, of course, suppressor uses stellite baffles, which Deadair has been known for using, and I can speak from experience that those are highly durable for even machine gun uses. This suppressor is full auto rated, which we'll get to. And like I said, you can change out the mounting systems, Chemo versus direct thread versus their Xeno system. Coming in at just over 6 inches with their traditional diameter 1.5. Weight is just over 10 ounces. The body is stainless steel while the baffles are stellite, that laser welding that went into it. And the finish has got a black Cerakote finish on it. Bore diameter is 5.56 millimeters, so calibers below that like 223 Valkyrie, 224 Valkyrie, 223 can be used with this. And of course, you could probably put some other calibers in there I'm not even mentioning if you really wanted to, but it is kind of centric to the 5.56, 223 family of firearms. Getting into the review, first couple of shots I took, I ran them without ear pro just to see what it sounded like. And the environment is going to dictate just how much that sound bounces back. So if I were to do 5 rounds in a hallway versus 5 rounds on an open range, it's going to sound different. But I will say that it doesn't feel like it's even really approaching what I consider to be kind of a danger level for sound attenuation. Other people are going to put out videos on this, guys like PP Science and other YouTube channels who do reviews where they actually do decibel meters and things like that, can tell you exactly what the decibel rating is. There's what's available and what's quoted from Deadair based on their testing. Can sounds great, especially for the size, and that's excellent. If it was a 30 caliber can, would it sound differently? Absolutely it would. But maybe you wouldn't notice it sounding differently, if you kind of get my point. This can has a very good tone to it, and it reduces the sound level below what I worry about for that pain threshold. Also, using it in a low light, using our night vision, the muzzle signature is excellent for a suppressor this short on short guns. I ran this on 12.5s primarily during the review process, which is a shorter barrel, less powder gets burnt, generally speaking, when shooting those, especially shooting 5.56 versus 2.23, which I fired both ammunitions. Fired a lot of 6.2 grain, but also shot a lot of 55 grain, some 75 grain, some 77 grain. And the muzzle attenuation, that muzzle flash, was just a little boop, little pencil of fire. Occasionally, as volume built out in the can, and I got a little unburnt powder burst of orange. Very dull, very boring orange flame, as opposed to any kind of fireballs that were being created like some other suppressors in this size profile do create. So the baffle design is definitely assistive in that regard, and the fact that it is helping reduce that muzzle signature, and their flash cap, which again, just with other Deadair products, you can change out that flash cap, throw an e-brake on there or what have you, and you're going to get the same performance you'd expect from those accessories. So the flash hiding cap is definitely going to help there. I didn't use it at any point during the review process without using a flash hider cap on it. Well, because since the flash hider cap exists, I kind of don't want to use those caps, if you kind of get my feeling. I like the flash reduction that I get from them, so there's no reason for me to take one off. Because the suppressor comes with it, if you do happen to get one, you're going to be kind of in the same boat. You're like, well, this is great. Why would I ever change it out just to see what the muzzle flash would be like on a muzzle device I'm not going to use anyway? Pressure on the suppressor is excellent. Again, shooting it on SBR length guns, but also longer guns, I didn't notice any significant change in carrier speed. It did seem like I did put it on my 12.5 ADM machine gun. I used that for the burn down, which we'll get to, but also just some general shooting for some full auto bursts. It did feel like it sped up my carrier just a little bit, but that's more of a concern for select fire. You're not necessarily going to have it. My ADM did feel like it was shooting a little bit faster than it would unsuppressed, but not crazy noticeably so. So there's definitely a pressure relationship change that's going to occur anytime you suppress a firearm. You're going to have that anyway. But to me, wasn't a big concern. Didn't create any reliability issues with the gun. My ADM machine gun's getting tired anyway. It's about coming up on its barrel birthday, which means it's time for barrel number 3 to be swapped into that thing. And probably could stand for a new buffer spring while we're talking about it. But even using it on that machine gun, reliability was definitely there. And the suppressor can handle that increased schedule of fire. It can definitely take the heat. The burn down, 500 rounds as quickly as possible to see if that accelerated rate of fire will identify any issues that you wouldn't notice otherwise with the same round count over a much longer period of time. So 2 to 3, 4 to 5 minutes versus 2 to 3, 4 to 5 hours, days, weeks, months, you know. Here's your burn down. We definitely got to the forbidden popsicle levels of abuse. 500 rounds is completely unrealistic in that short a period of time for a suppressor. I'll be the first to admit it. In fact, I probably, if I'd gone back in time, my burn downs for suppressors probably would have been 210 rounds. Or I would use like the SOCOM mil-spec schedule of fire for full auto rated versus what I do. And maybe in the future I'll change that, but until then, I'm still gonna do those 500 rounds. I didn't do it all in full auto because I don't know any suppressor that could probably survive 500 rounds uninterrupted. First to last round on a 12.5 inch machine gun in that shorter period of time. But I did quite a few full autos, both full runs of the magazine and shooting, you know, 1 second, 2 second bursts. Was able to set the suppressor on fire just a little bit, definitely got it red hot, but I didn't blow the baffles out of it, didn't shoot the can down range, and after it cooled down, suppressor removed from the can fine, doing some inspection. I didn't see any accelerated erosion or anything like that with the baffles, and we're still good to go. That brought us to 1,000 rounds, and then of course the last 1,000 rounds was just, you know, working the suppressor on various guns through various types of practice or drills or things that I was doing. Boring reliability. I gotta say, like even as the gun gets hot, especially on that burn down, should have mentioned that. Sound doesn't really change. As the gun gets hotter, I didn't notice any significant change in the sound attenuation or the sound signature, if you will. Muzzle signature definitely going to change as cans get super hot, especially when they start spitting really hot fire, as they start to glow to the eye. They're definitely taking a lot of heat, and it was probably outside the realm of, again, realism that you'd expect from your suppressor. Anyway, on on semi-auto only, you'd be hard-pressed to get a suppressor that hot anyway. So I did it for you, so you don't have to worry about it. The mounting is also an important thing to talk about. Chemo is not properly attached and screwed down and torqued correctly. It's not going to come loose, and I think the 500 round burn down can definitely attest to that. If any collar system, any QD system was going to fail, it's going to fail doing stuff like that, because bullets make suppressors twist when they're not properly torqued or properly tightened down. It's something you do have to worry about with direct thread as well. Mounting it on a precision gun, and this is, we get into the, you know, the return to accuracy that some people are gonna worry about. Put it on my FN DMR3, which is an excellent accurate rifle. It's a sub MOA gun. It's one of the most accurized guns that you can get from FN, available in the 5.56/223 family. I shot 5-round groups out of that gun at 100 yards. I did a 5-round group suppressed for zeroing purposes. I'll show you that group right now. Now, gun's zeroed to that suppressor, right? So I go ahead and remove the suppressor. Now, during this process, I was using the Xeno mounting system, not the chemo. That's an important distinction for some people. They want to know that. So there you go. I was using the thread-on or the screw-on Xeno mounting system with one of their muzzle devices versus using one of their other muzzle devices for the chemo quick detach, if you will. Although technically they're both quick detach, if you ask me, because they quickly detach. But here's a 5-round group I fired. Again, it's zeroed on the suppressor. Another 5-round group I fired after that, removing the suppressor to see what kind of shift we could expect, suppressed versus unsuppressed, because there's usually going to be one. Definitely a noticeable shift there at 100 yards. Not that big of a deal, and it was repeatable. I'll get to that. Went ahead and threw the suppressor right back on, gave the gun like a minute, 2 minutes to cool down while I, you know, check targets and just stuff like that, and fired another 5-round group to see if we ever returned to zero after putting the suppressor back on the gun. I'm very happy with that performance. If I was going to use this can for a dedicated precision gun, and I was going to shoot it suppressed and suppressed, and I took it off a couple other times just to get an idea if that was consistent, and it was. So it's technically, not a lot of people do this, but it would be something that I could dope for. I could know my adjustments that I needed to dial in going from suppressed to unsuppressed, and take them out when I went back to suppressed, if that's something that you wanted to do. But in the grand scheme of things, for most shooting distances, that's not something that's going to greatly concern me. And to be honest, if I'm going for precision and the gun's zeroed on the suppressor, I would have the suppressor on the gun anyway. But it is nice to know that you can remove the suppressor and you're not going to have a significant loss of accuracy, especially at those closer distances that we all unfortunately end up shooting at anyway. But for me, if the gun can be suppressed, there's no real reason to regularly take the suppressor off of it, especially for a gun that I'd consider for precision purposes, like the DMR3. What else can you say about the suppressor? It is excellent. I love this can. I really do. I think the aesthetics of it are great. The knurling is it's a super simple thing, but it's a super nice touch because so often I had grip issues when adjusting suppressors and I had to go get a glove or wrench strap or thing like that. Knurling actually gives me a little bit extra horsepower if the gun starts to carbon lock after a high schedule of fire. And aesthetically, it just looks cool. It's very old school to me. Furthermore, I finally have a 5.56/223 caliber dedicated suppressor from Deadair, which I've been waiting for a very long time. So there is a slight degree of bias expectation and excitement about that. But the suppressor also performs very well, especially for its size profile. I personally don't think I've owned a suppressor in this length or shorter that performed better. Maybe as well, sure. But better, I can't really think of one. And I literally stood in front of my safe this morning before coming to the range to finish up this review on the Deadair, and I was staring at my small but mighty collection of 5.56 suppressors, and I was thinking to myself, which one of those does this as well or better? And I didn't really have anything come to mind. There's a lot of great suppressors out there, and some of them don't cost nearly as much as this one does. And again, this is not an expensive suppressor. MSRP is right around $900, but you're probably going to be able to find it cheaper than that. If you're already a Deadair fan, you should have no hesitancy whatsoever in getting the suppressor if you've been waiting for them to do a 5.56/223. Some people had asked me, alluded like, hey, does it perform the same way as the K-Can did? The K-Can was definitely, the idea behind it was an emergency type suppressor. I would consider this to be more of a general purpose type suppressor that also provides a great deal of accuracy return to zero if you wanted to use it on a precision rifle. Because if I go 16, 18 inches, I want to get a shorter suppressor anyway. Sound's going to be different because of the longer barrel anyway, and I don't want to greatly increase the length of that gun unless I'm going for quote-unquote stupid quiet, which is something I'm definitely willing to do as well. So if Deadair wants to release a longer version of the suppressor, I would gladly buy it. I will probably get another one of these. I like it a lot. Is it my favorite 223 5.56 suppressor? That's a hard call to make because I feel like I don't have to have a favorite. But if I was going to pick a suppressor, I'm probably reaching for this one. That doesn't mean I won't use other 5.56 223 suppressors, especially since I have more guns than I have suppressors, and that creates issues as well. But I can't think of any other suppressor that's caliber specific that does anything significantly better than this one does. So maybe that's an answer to your question, but I also don't believe that I have to pick a favorite because I have more than one suppressor, and it's perfectly acceptable for for suppressors to do great things from different companies. It's not all going to come down to one thing that far and away stands above everybody else, but I will say that Deadair's first out-of-the-box attempt at a 223 5.56 suppressor is excellent, and if you were curious about it and you're thinking about like, maybe I'll get it, you should just go ahead and get it. Just go ahead and put that thing in NFA jail now, or if you're lucky enough you already got your FFL, just go ahead and get that thing in the mail, get it on the way to you, and enjoy what you're going to get. Now, is it the quietest suppressor ever? It wasn't intended to be. You got to think about the size profile, what the intent was. No magic is going to happen in that length profile that you wouldn't see, that would be significantly noticeable over other suppressors in the same size profile. There's no magic there, although I will say that they did an excellent job with sound attenuation, tone, performance, signature reduction, mounting systems, materials for what you're ultimately getting. So I'm a huge fan of this suppressor. I plan on getting more of them, and it's probably going to be my go-to 5.56 223 suppressor for the foreseeable future. I'm Eric Cowan with Sage Dynamics. Train accordingly.